just say all the mics will be live permanently. So if you want to respond to someone, your mic is already live.
All set. We don't have to do nothing.
And don't say anything.
Johannesburg. My name is Marianne Edgerton, the Director of Communication with the World Council of Churches, and we say warm welcome especially to those journalists following online from all over the world. And we have a distinguished panel with us, and they have just been finalizing the first opening session at the Central Committee. Next to me, Bishop Dr. Heinrich Bedford-Strom, the moderator of the World Council of Churches, Reverend Marilyn Hyde Riley, Vice Moderator of the World Council of Churches, and then His Eminence Archbishop Dr. Viken Akassian, Vice Moderator of the World Council of Churches, and Reverend Professor Dr. Jerry Pillay, General Secretary. And then we are especially happy to have Bishop Simpele Anton Sipoko, who is the moderator of the Southern African Council of Churches and the local host. So we're welcome. And we will ask the panelists to give a short introduction for a few minutes, and then we open up for questions. So I invite our moderator, Bishop Heinrich Bedford-Strom.
Thank you, Marianne. Why are we meeting here at this place in Johannesburg? Why are we meeting as a Central Committee? Of course, there are reasons, because we have a biannual, every other year we meet as a Central Committee. But there is a deeper reason why we meet. Because this world is a divided world. This world is a world in which violence increases, in which some people despair because there seems to be no light. And we as a Central Committee, as the World Council of Churches, we need to speak up. We need to be loud in this world. And we need to give a sign of unity, justice, and reconciliation. The pilgrimage of justice, reconciliation, and unity is what we engage in these years in general, but also especially here. The world needs signs of unity, and we have people here from all over the world with completely different backgrounds. People who would, when we talk about the issues of the world, normally maybe not beat each other on their heads, but would not find any common ground. What we experience here is something different. We listen to each other. We respect each other's backgrounds that we come with when we convene here. And we try to search for what the voice of Jesus Christ means for us today. In a world that is struck by violence, we want to speak up for those who are most vulnerable, for the poor, for those who experience violence. We want to speak up for non-human creation that is entrusted to us as human beings. We want to speak up for love and respect of each human being. That is why we are here. And that is why I already now feel that the spirit that shapes this assembly, this meeting, this spirit is the spirit of the future. It's the spirit of those who walk towards a new heaven and new earth, and who want to show it already now.
Thank you. Then we turn to Reverend Marilyn Hyde Riley.
Thank you very much. As the World Council of Churches, we recognize that we have a pivotal role to play as it relates to speaking to the world, speaking to the church, speaking to the whole world. And what is very significant about us is the fact that we are placed across the world, that there is hardly a corner of the world where the World Council of Churches is not represented. We're very concerned about the structural issues in the world, especially the injustices which really impacts human beings made in the image of God with essential dignity in ways that undermine human dignity. And so when we speak, we are saying that we have had enough in terms of that which undermines peace, that which undermines justice, that which works against reconciliation. The world is torn. The world is troubled. The world is in need of healing. And though we do not have all the answers, we are willing to make ourselves vulnerable and to touch the lives of persons wherever we are able to do so. We are extremely grateful that we had the privilege of coming here in South Africa, a country well known for a lot. And we have been, I believe, tremendously blessed by the ways in which we have seen South Africans struggle and work through the challenges which they have faced over the years. And this is an act of solidarity as we continue on this journey of this pilgrimage, we call it, where we walk alongside and draw alongside each other. So we believe that our presence will make some impact, not just because of what we may bring, those of us who have come to this country, but what we may be able to learn from South Africans and all others who are gathered at the Central Committee meeting.
Thank you, Reverend Marilyn. Then we turn to the other Vice Moderator, Archbishop Viken Akassian.
Yeah, first I would like to express our thanks and gratitude for the host churches who have accepted us, who are doing a lot for us and making our life better. It's a great pleasure for the member of the World Council of Churches to be in this country that has been in our agenda for long times. The World Council of Churches is the voice of voiceless. We are there wherever there are problems. We try to bring our contribution. We try to solve the problems, whether it's financial or racial or conflict, every kind. The World Council of Churches is a blessing to humanity. I have felt as an Armenian that it's a blessing to my country, to my people. And of course, this country has seen terrible days. In our meeting, somebody said, colonialism is a sin. I said, racism is evil. And World Council of Churches has been working against racism, at least as I know, for the last 40 years. And we will continue. The World Council of Churches is doing a lot for the climate change. We don't have billions of dollars to bring our financial contribution, but we have a voice to the humanity, to human beings, to countries, to our governments, to our people, to our friends. The World Council of Churches is very much concerned about the conflicts in the world. As you know, there are many conflicts, many problems, and we are there wherever there are conflicts. We defend those who need our defense. We go for those who need us, and we will continue doing it. God bless you, God bless World Council of Churches, and God bless South Africa.
Thank you, Archbishop Viken. Then we turn to Dr. Pillay. You're the 9th General Secretary of the World Council of Church and the first from South Africa. The floor is yours.
Well, I think it's a special privilege and joy for me to be General Secretary at this time, but also to be from South Africa. So I take really great joy in knowing that the Central Committee meets in my country. Although I'm not personally responsible for this because it was a decision of the Assembly of the WCC in 2022. But I can tell you this much, that the context of South Africa presents a absolutely fitting and appropriate environment for us to be able to discuss the things that WCC is very busy with at this present moment. Although it has been involved with these things for many, many years, but the climate in which we find ourselves right now, in a very volatile and messy and fragile world, riddled with wars and conflicts and tensions, and the need for peace. The South African context has so much to teach us about how peace can be established, how people can work together. In the area of justice, for example, South Africans have worked against apartheid and fought for racial justice for so many years. And they have taught us how it can be possible without bloodshed, and how it can happen without going to the route of engaging violence against each other. And we learn from that experience. But the World Council of Churches has traveled with South Africans in the program Combating Racism. Was a key program that helped to bring apartheid to its knees. When churches in South Africa reached out to the World Council of Churches and said, join with us, even though it wasn't an easy decision, but the council took that decision, called apartheid a heresy, and said we stand in solidarity with the oppressed people in South Africa. And that particular campaign gave worldwide exposure to the situation of apartheid and its injustices among so many people, the majority of people in the land. And so that's something to learn from. I think the World Council of Churches meeting here through its Central Committee has an environment that speaks about justice on a number of different levels. Not only racial justice, but economic justice, climate justice, digital justice, disability justice, indigenous justice, migrant justice. All of these things are important issues, but the environment just speaks about some of those things. And in fact, South Africa has been the leading country in the world right now that has taken stance fighting for justice in other countries. And the stance in terms of Palestine and Israel speaks because the people in South Africa have learned from their own lessons, and therefore, when they see what's happening in other parts of the world, they are not going to remain quiet, because they realize that justice for one is a justice for all in different contexts. But reconciliation and healing is important and necessary throughout the world. South Africa provides a wonderful climate for that. How people, black and white and black and so forth, English-speaking, Afrikaans-speaking people, and people from different ethnic groups can all seek reconciliation. And I think there are lessons to be learned from that. And this particular Central Committee meeting is going to be discussing those kind of stuff and having stories told to us about reconciliation, and we're hoping to learn lessons from this which we can apply to other global contexts. But also in the area of unity, critical indeed, because one of the significant things happened in this country was churches and religious leaders, people from other faith, all coming together, putting aside their differences and standing together against the common enemy, apartheid. The churches, the religious leaders stood in strength. And therefore, even in this country right now, religious leaders play a very, very significant role. Even if government at times does not want to actually attest to that or give it the credibility it requires, yet they have to come back and say, we cannot do so without the religious communities, because we have a very powerful voice, but also because religious leaders stood together in unity to fight against apartheid. Now, when we stand together, we are strong together. And that is why one of the things that we discuss, and one of the key things that is important for the WCC, is unity of Christians. 352 member churches working together. And when we stand together, we can transform the world. And this meeting is vital because of the context in which we live and what we can do across the globe.
Thank you, Dr. Pillay. Then we turn to the local host, the Bishop Sipoko, who is the president of the South African Council of Church and the first Catholic to head the ecumenical body. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. I have just assumed this task of leading the South African Council of Churches last year, having taken over from Archbishop Makgoba. We are really privileged to be hosting the World Council of Churches, being the South African Council of Churches, which is an associate body of the World Council of Churches. And we try to do almost everything that the previous speakers have spoken about at a local level, at a micro level. Professor Jerry has just narrated the the history of the South African Council of Churches in terms of its involvement in social and political issues. And he is right in noting the role that the churches have played towards confronting the apartheid system. But as Nelson Mandela's title's book, Long Walk to Freedom, encapsulates the reality of life, while we have achieved a lot, and indeed we have achieved a lot, and we are humbled by the example that other people think we are, we still have a lot of challenges. And so while this gathering is learning from how we have dealt with things in the past, we're also looking forward to learn as well, from them on how we can tackle now the present enemies, unlike the one enemy that we all gathered around, which was apartheid. There are also other enemies now that they are raising, their ugly heads. And they seem to succeed under a democratic dispensation because the human rights and dignity, are respected, unlike in the old apartheid days where if you are suspected of something, you were dealt with, immediately. But now you have to follow a process that respects human dignity, even when you are wrong. You have to be proven to be wrong. So we still have a lot of challenges, but we count on our previous experiences when we fought the big enemy, the apartheid, that even these ones, we will also make our contribution. We're not claiming that we are the ones who are going to solve these problems, but as churches, we are also trying to make our contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bishop Supoko. Now it's time to open up for questions from our journalists, and I think we will begin with one from Ireland, and I will ask my colleague Marcelo to present the question. Marcelo will repeat.
Thank you for being able to take part in this press conference. And there's a lot of mention about speaking to the world in the very troubled situation that the world faces today, about the WCC speaking to the world. I want to ask, do you think the world is listening?
Do you think the world is listening to what you say?
Is the world listening to the WCC?
Is the world listening to the WCC? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ellis, for your question from Ireland, Belfast. I think we will turn the question to Bishop Heinrich.
Well, thank you for this question. My first answer is it pretty much depends on you whether the world is listening, because there are only a limited number of people here in Johannesburg, and we need journalists. We need people who forward what is being said here. Our communications department does a great job in trying to foster that, but it depends on whether people who spread the news take these things up. And I just want to mention one voice that we just heard at our opening session. And that voice said, a woman from a church very far away from here, she said, our churches all over the world are waiting for your messages. They need strengthening. They need orientation. And the World Council of Churches as a body, and we always must remind people about that, a body of 352 churches in 120 countries with 600 million members. The World Council of Churches has a network all over the world. So even without that realm of outside of us, our churches do have a voice in their countries. And if you if you think of organizations, of institutions, of communities in the global civil society that would have that power to send their messages into people, into communities that are rooted absolutely in the context, in the regional context, in the local context of this world, then you probably wouldn't find a comparable organization, which is what Vice Moderator Marilyn Hyde-Riley has emphasized. So we are doing our best to get you, dear journalists, to report on what is happening here, and to make clear that what is happening here represents many, many people on this world that are often not in the headlines, but that need to be in the headlines. The victims of all this violence. We always talk in the TV rounds and in the newspapers about these people in power who are often behind the violence. Let's talk more about the victims, and the victims have a voice here in Johannesburg.
Thank you very much, Bishop Heinrich. We have another question about the major outcome. Would you like to say something? Of course,
Yes,
Reverend
I just wanted to add an example, another example. And to say, yes, I believe the world is listening. Perhaps not everybody, but a significant number of persons. The WCC has a Thursdays in Black campaign, for example, where we send a message out against rape, against violence against women, all forms of violence against women. And we have seen where this campaign has really been embraced across the world. And the message of gender equity, the message of no to violence has really spread. And we have heard wonderful testimonies of the transformation in many persons' lives as a result of this campaign, which many persons across the world would have embraced.
Thanks for that, Reverend Marilyn. I think we can continue with Dr. Pillay and then Archbishop Wickend. We can listen to the different voices in the leadership, and you're coming from different continents.
I think people are listening. I think the message of the WCC goes out and people are listening, because people are thinking and people are feeling. And when they're thinking and feeling about what's happening in the world around us, they are not happy people. They're broken people. They see it and they don't know what to do. But I think that's the situation, is that people think and feel and listen, but they're paralyzed. Why are they paralyzed? Because the politicians are not listening. The politicians are not listening to the people. They're not listening to the brokenness, to the pain and the suffering of the world. And that's where the problem lies. The seats of power are not able to mobilize us in a good way. And people are struggling and asking the questions, how do we do that? That's the question we are engaging as a WCC. We are trying to mobilize the powers that be. We are challenging them, we are visiting with them, we are saying to them from the basis of our scriptural understanding that violence and wars are not justified or right, that peace and dialogue is the way to go. So we are challenging these leaders. And the more we challenge them, we work against the paralysis that many people are feeling. And therefore, I would like to say that people are listening. They get the message from the WCC, but they're asking, what do we do about what we are experiencing? And we are trying our best. It's not an easy road to walk, but we are trying our best to take the voices of the people and to give it to the people of power.
Thank you, Dr. Pillay. We turn to Archbishop Wickend.
From my own experience, I think that people are listening, and we see from the result of our activities that people are listening. Not only the people, the churches are listening, because the churches are asking the guidance, the wisdom of the World Council of Churches. Based on the wisdom that the World Council of Churches gives to them, they work and they achieve a lot of things. So they listen, they follow, they appreciate, and they thank the World Council of Churches.
Thank you very much, Archbishop Wickend. We will also turn to Bishop Sipoko. Do they listen to the Council of Churches in South Africa?
Not as much as we would like them to, but the people believe in the church as a credible voice that can add to their own voice. And quite often, when perhaps we seem to be slack or slow, in reacting to things, we hear people, what is the church saying? Because they have spoken, but they are not listened to. And so they have confidence in the church that if the church joins them, then eventually, somebody, in the corridors of power, will listen. And our belief is that we will keep, talking. I don't remember which text in the Bible where God says to the prophet, speak even if they don't listen. Don't stop because they are not listening. So we will not stop until they listen.
Thank you very much for that, Bishop Sepoko. We have a few more questions, and the time flies. We know that we have a decision session in a moment, but we will allow probably 2 more questions, and then we will conclude. So, Marcelo.
Question about God's time and a message to the young people in the world.
Bishop Heinrich.
Well, in my report, I spoke about this saying of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, these words of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, praying, doing justice, and waiting for God's time. Those 3 things, and I confess, this is what I live from. I couldn't live without that in these times. Praying and doing justice, I think we've made that very clear, belongs together. You cannot have one without the other. But then that third one, that Bonhoeffer, by the way, added later, that third one is maybe the most important one. Waiting for God's time. That means we do not see the reconciliation that is promised. We do not see it. We see it in some things. And having your eyes open for it helps. But we know that what we see is not the end. So when and I say that to the young people especially, when we sometimes think, where is this world going? Do we have a future in this world? What is happening with the climate? Will we have a natural environment where we can live? That is when we can maybe think of what is promised to us. That we are not walking towards a dark hole, but walking towards a new earth and a new heaven and a new earth. And that is the promise. And that's why I encourage, especially young people, get engaged, because you know you will have a future. And God wants you to put your head, your heart, and your hands into the service of this future. So we are called to all work together as people of God to make this reconciliation that is promised to us already a reality now. And that is why waiting for God's time is so crucial, because that gives you the power for acting now.
Thank you, Bishop Heinrich. And then Dr. Pelé, and then we have Bishop Sepoko.
I think what our moderator is saying is that God's time does not mean that we must become passive and sit back with a sense of resignation and wait for God to do it. What he's been saying is that we are God's instruments to bring something into being in God's time. And so we have to all be active agents, seeking justice, working for justice, ensuring that justice comes. If I may go back to the example in South Africa, and this much is true. Religious leaders played a very important role in the transformation of our country, but it was the young people who really brought the turn of the tide. They mobilized, they came forward, they said we cannot accept apartheid, we will not stay quiet, and they, as young people, resisted with all that they had. The youth taking action changed apartheid. So what I'm saying is that God's time is aligned to the work that we do. We need to say, what are we doing to make that change and to bring that transformation? And it comes when people do not sit back and leave it to others or just leave it to God, but when people actively work with God to transform the world.
Thank you. Then Bishop Sepoko.
I think that the moderator gave us a beautiful theological framework of the resurrection for this ongoing hope that the Secretary General also spoke about. Because if you think about it, if you were living in the time of Jesus and you were his follower, and you had pinned all your hopes on him, and then suddenly he was eliminated, and then everything was gone. If you take the story of the 3 disciples from Emmaus, it was finished. But in God's time and in God's way, he caused the resurrection. And this we must not take just as a kind of a historical fact, but as something that continues to empower us even now. That because the resurrection happened, so also what we hope for will happen in God's time.
Thank you. Then we have another question about the major outcomes from the Central Committee, and I turn to Reverend Marilyn.
Well, one of the things we always do when we gather together for the Central Committee meetings is that we seek to discern what the Lord would have us to say in the various contexts across the world on various issues. And so our public issues committee would, together with all of us, highlight certain things and make statements. And we have several statements that we certainly intend to make during this committee. I'll ask our General Secretary to just indicate the statements that we currently have on the table to go out.
Thanks for that. Then we have a final question, Marcelo.
This one.
Sorry. Yeah. Archbishop.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
I have been receiving some calls from United States asking me, please send us the statements. The outcome of this conference is going to be statements, condemnations, invitation to justice and peace. This is going to continue. So people are waiting for us, and we are ready to give our messages to the world.
Thanks for that. Dr. Pillian.
I think the first thing I should say is that wherever the World Council of Churches goes, it always puts out a statement of the context in which it meets. And so we will be issuing a statement on South Africa. And there we will be putting out a statement to say how we see the situation, what we offer to the situation, what we call for in the situation as well. So that's going to be a priority statement that will come out. But getting back to some of the areas that we're going to be focusing on, we will be putting out a statement actually. In fact, one of the important statements that will emerge is a statement on defining genocide. We'll be looking at that. There's a statement coming out to talk about genocides. There are different genocides that are taking place all over in the world. So we are going to be putting out a statement on that. We will be putting a statement on things that work makes for peace, that we have been busy with because we believe dialogue is important for peace. We will outline the work that we've been doing in certain areas. It will include countries like Ukraine and Russia, Palestine and Israel, Sudan, Colombia, to name a few. The Democratic Republic of the Congo, and all of these countries. We will be having a full statement, putting out a statement and a document on talking about peace, but naming some of the countries, and of course there's so many more, but naming them and saying, how do we work in this context, and what is the message we leave for those particular contexts that needs to be taken forward, and all people concerned, not only just religious people, but political people and others need to be taken seriously in that specific context. So among the many statements that will come out, that's a good summary of some of the important things that deal with contextual and global issues.
Thanks. Bishop Heinrich.
Yeah, I want to highlight one decision that we expect that will be very relevant for the next 10 years. We will be launching a decade, which means 10 years, of climate justice action. And we will send this message into our member churches all over the world. And I expect this to be a very significant outcome of this conference, because it means that we commit ourselves to put the question of climate justice into the center of our work, of our sermons, of our action for ourselves in terms of how we deal with CO2 emission in our own buildings and in our own work environments, but also we commit ourselves to challenge politicians, to challenge public policy, to take this theme as a decisive theme for the future of especially our young people, but also for those who are already now in certain regions of the world most affected by the effects of climate change, and they are those who have contributed to climate change the least. So this deep injustice that we're witnessing will be highlighted in the next 10 years. And let me just take one example of my own grandson. He will be in my age in the year 2081. And we all know how terrible the prognosis for that year would be if we do not really make a big change, if we do not practice metanoia, which means turning around. It's a theological and very relevant expression. So we are called to really change. So our grandchildren, my grandson and all the other grandchildren of all those people out there who want the best for them, who say, I want my grandchild to have at least a good life as I have it. I think it's not just a political theme. It's a very personal theme for all these people out there. I would dare to say that almost all grandfathers and grandmothers and whatever would exactly have that same wish. And we need to make very clear that if we want to fulfill that wish that we have in our hearts, we must act. We must act quickly. We must act radically. That will be, so I hope, the message of this launching of our climate justice action decade here in Johannesburg by the World Council of Churches.
Thank you, Bishop Heinrich. The final question is coming from Madagascar, one of our hard-working ecumenical journalists following, I would say, almost every press conference and reading almost everything we do. We're turning over to Marcelo to read the question. I think it will be directed to Dr. Pelé.
The WCC is helping churches to fight against racial injustices. What does the WCC do to heal the people of God who are victims of these injustices? People who are depressed and anxious.
Of course, I mean, the first part of the struggle is to work with people to campaign against injustices. But that does not become the full stop. You have to also then continue to work with healing and reconciliation, and in some places even reparation, for example. So what we do is that we also work with the context, and we ask what is possible and permissible in the context. So we plant in every place that we are currently working now. It's a new thing that we're doing. We plant groups of people or envoys that takes the work further. And what they're doing now is doing precisely that, working on the issues of reconciliation, working on the issues of bringing healing, dealing with trauma. Now, of course, the World Council of Churches cannot do that on a broad scale. We need to work in the regions, we need to work in the context, but we need the people to be the people who actually engage these activities themselves. What we offer is training, counseling, and training in counseling, helping to set up processes, helping to find people who can facilitate, and also indeed to work and walk with people in the facilitation processes. Not easy, because it also becomes expensive for the WCC to embark on these initiatives, but where there's been a need, and certainly there's been many requests from different places for these facilities, whether on a small scale or much more than that, we are doing that. So yes, I think we are saying as a WCC, we're not in a mission of just going, doing our thing and saying in one context, let's fight against injustices here and then we move on. We are there to stay. We're there to stay as long as we can and do what we can in that context. That's what we understand by the concept of the pilgrimage. Pilgrimage means that we are here and we are on a journey together. The journey may have a first stage, it may have a second stage, a third stage, and so many other stages. We will walk with people as long as we can and do with them what we can so that they can find reconciliation and healing in their context. So what I'm trying to say is that It's not something that we do from afar. It's something that we do with the people in the context, and they are part of that journey and experience themselves.
Thank you, Dr. Pele. Reverend Marilyn.
Yes, I just wanted to add to that, just to remind us that the WCC is not the office in Geneva, but that the WCC is across the world, wherever member churches are, and that the work that is taking place in different contexts across the world is the work of the WCC. Certainly the work that is done through our member churches, and that many of our member churches are collaborating with other entities and doing a lot of work. We speak about the issue of reparation. A lot of work has been done across the world through joint partnerships between WCC member churches and other entities. Just wanted to add that.
Thank you very much. I say big thanks to all media following online and those present in this room, and especially to the panel. I know that you have to leave for the next session, and we will stay tuned. We will send out more material to media, and feel free to reach out if you would like to also have interviews. We will organize that during the week. So thank you very much, and all the best for the work next coming days.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.